Tonight we get to subtract rational numbers, fractions and decimals. Big Ideas Lesson 2.3, page 60. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is good to see you again. And today we are again going to subtract these rational numbers. And of course we are going to use the integer rules. Our essential question, how can you use what you know about subtracting integers to subtract rational numbers? Now, ladies and gentlemen, please understand there's a purpose behind what Mr. Ross asks you to do. There is also a purpose behind what Mr. Ross shows you when it comes to solving and calculating and doing this math. You know this is big boy and big girl school. I understand mathematics. You do not have to do it the way I do it. You can do it the way your elementary teacher showed you if you're more comfortable with that. And if you need to, come and see me and I will work those through with you. But we're going to subtract these rational numbers. And I know when I was in elementary and I had to subtract fractions, I hated it if I had to borrow. I had absolutely no clue and I was always lost having to borrow. So I'm trying to make this simple for you. The procedures for subtracting rational numbers is exactly the same as adding them with one very slight, tiny difference. So we're going to write down these four procedures once again. The first one being, hey, when I see a negative sign, including subtraction, I make these fractions improper. If they're mixed or whole numbers, I make them improper. Second, I do common denominators, and I keep that denominator. I'm trying to make this simple, so we're doing these procedures, they're the same thing. Now here comes the very, very only slight difference. Since we're subtracting them, guess what we're going to do with the numerators? That's right, we're going to subtract the numerators this time, following the integer rules, and of course we have to simplify. It's that straightforward, and it makes that borrowing stuff go completely 100% away. All right, so here we go. When subtracting rational numbers, use the same rules for the signs as you use for what? That's right, integers. And it's best to use common denominators. Can we do it without them? You bet. We can follow order of operations and we can turn those fractions to decimals and we can do it and then we can get started that way. But we're going to do it with common denominators because we all want to have the same exact answer. Subtracting rational numbers, we're going to find 1/3 minus a negative 1/3. And so here we have a case where we already have numbers that we don't need to make any of them improper, and we already have a common denominator, so we're going to keep it. And then we say, wow, we have 1 minus a negative 1. That's all we have to do. Well, we know same change. We follow the same integer rules. We know add the opposite, and so now we have 1 plus 1 over 3, which is 2/3. And we're done. All right? Moving right along. Negative 3 1/3 minus 5/6. So here we go. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to change to improper. Here's the reason. If I made common denominators, I would end up with 2 4/6 minus 5/6. And I would then have to borrow. If you want to do that, go for it. Here's the way I like to do it. I'm going to make it improper. I could actually make common denominators first if I wanted, because sometimes that does make it easier. There's many multiple ways, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we ask you to show your work on your paper so that we can see exactly what you did. We can see your thinking and we can say, hey, that is correct. You just made a simple error here. All right? Or no, it's not good math. So 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10, so negative 10/3. Remember, I always put the negative in the numerator. Now I need common denominators, and that's going to be 6, and I'm going to keep it. Well, 3 times 2 is 6, so negative 10 times 2 is negative 20. Minus 5/6, because we just keep the 5. Now we do the integer rules. Negative 20 plus a negative 5/6. That's negative 25/6. And 6 goes into 25 4 times. So we have a negative 4, and there's 1 left over. It's that simple, ladies and gentlemen. That simple. Moving right along. 4 1/2 minus 5 1/4. So here we go, making improper. I have 2 times 4, which is 8, plus 1 is 9. So I have 9/2 minus 21/4. 21/4. I need a common denominator. That's going to be 4. And 2 times 2 is 4, so 9 times 2 is 18, minus 21 over 4, which gives me 18 plus a negative 21 over 4. And I recognize I'm adding integers that are opposite, so I get negative 3 over 4. Voila! It really does work, and it really makes your math quicker. It makes it simpler. You understand what you're doing because we've learned all these rules. And we understand the math. It's not just following some, hey, here's a step, so you got to borrow, and why am I borrowing this? Because you get all confused. Moving right along, when subtracting decimals, once again, you have to line up the decimal to ensure you're subtracting the proper place value, so we're going to make this real quick. 8.4 minus 6.7, following the integer rules, that becomes 8.4 plus a negative 6.7. We recognize now we're adding opposite signs, so we take 8.4, we subtract 6.7, lining up those decimals. We borrow and we get 7, and we drop down and we get 1, negative 1.7. All right? And remember, if I'm going too fast, you can always just watch and listen and then pause and write it down real quickly before you start it again and going on to the next example. Negative 20.5 minus negative 20.5. And adding the opposite or same change, that becomes negative 20.5 plus 20.5. I recognize that those are inverse. They are opposites, the additive inverse, and I recognize right away that is 0. All right. How about 0.41 minus a negative 0.07, or 41 hundredths minus a negative 7 hundredths? So I would go 41 hundredths plus 7 hundredths, and then I can line it up, 0.41, 0.07, and that's 0.48 is my final answer. Ladies and gentlemen, straightforward stuff. I know you can do it. Let's do our first quick write. Obviously, many of the problems you're going to get on your assignment are a slight bit more challenging, but they follow the same exact process. Hello? Quick write number 1. Find a negative 8 2/3 minus 6 1/6. And find a negative 3 75 hundredths minus a negative 96 hundredths. And you can say that as a decimal if you would like. When you're done, take a quick break, get a snack, whatever, talk to mama about dishes, whatever you need to do, and then come back and finish video number 2.